There are a few games that I will pick up and play occasionally. One of those games is Super Mario World. Originally, I never appreciated this game. I always thought it was fun, but for some reason it just never held my attention too long when I was a kid. Fast forward to college years, and all of a sudden, something clicked. I couldn't really tell you exactly what it was that made me look at this game in a different light. Maybe it was because I was older, but after replaying this game for the review, I now understand why. Super Mario World is the 2D Mario 64, and Mario 64 definitely draws some inspiration from this game. But what makes Mario World stand out above pretty much any other 2D Mario game? Let's jump right in and find out. For a launch title on the Super Nintendo, I must say it still holds up well even though games later on in the system's life take full advantage of the hardware. All the new sprites have a lot more charm to them due to new animations being used. You'll see Koopas without shells sliding down hills, a new enemy called Charging Chucks that looks around confused after you bounce off of them, and Bowser being dazed after you hit him. The backgrounds themselves have a lot more detail added to them. No longer do we just have clouds or bushes passing by. You can now go through vast forests, tall mountains, and caves that sparkle. One of the more interesting aspects is how the foreground and background work in conjunction with one another. The background moves at a slower pace than the foreground, giving a 3D illusion to all the levels. The best area that utilizes this effect are the caves in Vanilla Dome. Beating all of these levels are more satisfying than ever before by one small change made after clearing a level, and that's And if you couldn't tell from the last clip, the music is as catchy as ever. Nothing will ever come close to beating the original Mario theme, but the overworld and athletic themes are always a great listen. An extra touch is also added to most of the songs in the game. When you mount your new companion named Yoshi, bongos will be added to all of the arrangements. Because we have moved on from the NES to the Super Nintendo, we now have more animated cutscenes and they definitely went all out on them. After defeating each of the Koopalings, Mario will end up destroying their bases in the most bizarre ways possible. Mario will wipe them away with a mop, attempt to explode it, or just punt it out of sight. 2D Mario games have stayed the same throughout his journey of games. However, I would consider Super Mario World to be the first big leap for these subset of games. At its core, Mario World still has the same gameplay as previous entries. You run and jump your way to the end of the level and progress to the next one. Mario does have a few new moves in his arsenal like the spin jump. Certain enemies now require more than one head bounce to defeat them. The new spin jump can defeat any enemy with 1 pound and break certain blocks. The P-meter is no longer in this game, which isn't that big of a deal, but the variety of power-ups that were in Mario 3 are now gone. The only 3 returning power-ups are the Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, and the Starman. Only 2 power-ups make their debut, including the P-Balloon, which temporarily allows you to float in the air by making Mario chunky. You don't see this used that often in levels unless it's a secret area. Probably one of the most versatile power-ups in a Mario game makes its debut, and it's called the Cape Feather. The feather is basically the Super Leaf from Mario 3, but on steroids. By rapidly pressing the run button, Mario can infinitely spin his cape to attack virtually any enemy and stop certain projectiles. He can also hang in the air for an extended period of time by holding down the jump button. The cape's attack is good by itself, and slowly floating to the ground eliminates a lot of the challenge Mario World has to offer. But that's not what makes this power-up so good. If you're able to get a running start, you can jump extremely high in the air, and by rhythmatically tapping the opposite direction, Mario can fly. If it wasn't obvious, this combined with the other abilities makes the Cape Feather the preferred power-up to use. You're not able to abuse the power of flight in every level, but the other 2 abilities easily make up for it. I used to hate the fact that the power-ups were limited, but not so much anymore. The Cape Feather might break the game in a sense, but the power-up is so versatile, it makes platforming fun. To help make up for this, Mario has a new sidekick named Yoshi. Yoshi has the ability to eat almost every enemy in the game and can defeat enemies with 1 jump. However, when swallowing Koopa shells, Yoshi can gain a new ability that's based on the color of the shell. Green shells let Yoshi spit it out as a projectile, red shells allow him to spit out fire, yellow causes a big earthquake when Yoshi lands on the ground after jumping, and blue shells give Yoshi the ability to fly. Like the Cape Feather, the blue shells have the best ability. These shells are pretty scattered between all the levels, so it's not common to run into them. However, you can easily get this ability from any colored shell by having the correct colored Yoshi. Yoshis can be multiple colors, with the default being green. Colored Yoshis can only be obtained in the Star World. They all start out as babies and need to be fed enemies in order to fully mature. When grown up, these Yoshis can gain the abilities of the corresponding color shell no matter what Koopa shell they swallow. For example, blue Yoshis will always be able to fly no matter what shell you ingest. These Yoshis are incredibly easy to obtain, especially the blue one. Any Yoshi combined with the cape feather makes the game as a whole incredibly easy, but it's still more challenging than Mario 3. If you haven't noticed by now, I was able to rack up lives pretty easily. This doesn't necessarily make the game a walk in the park, but it loves to give you plenty of opportunities to make sure getting a game over is impossible. It feels like one of the levels was intentionally designed to get as many lives as possible. Even then, the act of completing a level gets you closer, with a matching tile minigame that gives you a chance to get even more lives. Upon completing a level, you will get points based on where the white tape is placed on the finish line. You rack up 100 points, you will be taken to the minigame automatically. Despite the easy nature, the levels in Mario World are a lot more memorable than any of the Mario games before it. Sometimes it's just for aesthetics mainly, but there are some creative level designs in here, like the puzzles in ghost houses, the sunken ghost ship, a forest that drops bob-ombs out of bubbles, a level that changes based on how many coins you have, and hopping on top of dolphins. I could go on and on, honestly. There are still some challenging levels in the special world. These levels are a million times harder than normal, even though I cheesed my way through one of them. The hardest one was Tubular, yes, that's its actual name, but it's mainly due to charging chucks throwing an assortment of balls at you. Beating all of these will unlock a new fall setting for the overworld, and changes the look of some of the enemies to... oh dear god, what am I looking at? Like I said in the intro, this game is essentially a 2D Mario 64. It's mostly in the form of multiple ways to complete a level. 24 levels have secret exits that will take you to different parts of the map. Levels with secret exits will clearly be marked in red in the overworld. This rewards the player for exploring every inch of the level. For example, in one level you can take the normal exit, or you can go underneath the exit to complete the level. Don't get me wrong, some of them are more obvious than others, but it gives a more accomplished feeling after beating a level, since normally you may just find extra coins or 1-ups. This also adds a ton of replay value to the game. The overworld map is literally an entire world. There are branching pathways throughout, meaning there are a ton of different ways a playthrough can go. For example, in Mario 3, you may have been only able to skip 1 or 2 levels per world, but in this game, you can skip an entire world, or the majority of the game altogether. This makes the game considerably short, depending on how you play, but that's the beauty of it. It gives the player freedom to complete whatever level they want. Yeah, you won't know every secret exit location in your first playthrough, but this style of gameplay encourages multiple runs of the game. Traversing through all the levels feels great due to the overall physics and controls. This is without a doubt the best controlling 2D platformer out there. It does something unique called making the player at fault for their own mistakes. Not once did I feel like I died because the physics were a little off or the controls were not tight enough. Every death felt like it was my fault. I won't lie, coming back to this game after playing through Mario 3 felt a little weird at first. The physics are different compared to it because Mario can go from 0 to 100 quickly now. Whenever you hit left or right in the air, there is not that much force pushing back against you. This makes it easier to make mid-air adjustments and makes jumping from one block to the next a lot smoother. Once again, at the end of every world, you will face off against the Koopalings, and they are even more pathetic than their last incarnations in Mario 3. It's incredibly easy to beat them, and all their patterns are incredibly predictable. There is a new boss by the name of Reznor, which I'll admit is a little more challenging, but not by much. Despite the relatively easy nature of the game, Nintendo really brought the best of what 2D Mario has to offer. I don't think a single 2D Mario game comes close to the quality this game brings to the series as a whole. It did what every sequel does and improved upon the ideas of Mario 3 and made without a doubt one of the best Mario games to date. But what do I know? I'm just some random guy on the internet who decided to make a video series on all the mainline Mario games. Hey, if you want to see more from Nate's Gaming Lounge, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more game reviews, and see you next time.